Hello, subscribers. Today we're going to go over a game between Magnus Carlsen and vachire lagrave. Maximilian vachire lagrave. And the game was played in the year 2017 at the 5th Singfield Cup. This game is probably my favorite game ever because of the incredible amount of variations and possibilities that could have happened, and the different plans for both sides, and just the grit displayed by both players. It is truly incredible. And so the game started off with Magnus Carlsen playing knight to f3, vachire lagrave playing knight to f6. Carlsen played c4 and c5, knight to c3, d5, c takes on d5, knight takes on d5, e3, and it is beckoning for a possible endgame. So, and this game is very unexplored as well, which is one of Carlsen's interesting traits he has in all of his games. He always goes for the avoiding of theory, which is great. And so, after these happened, there is an early endgame. It's sort of a la Berlin sort of position. Berlin defense in a way. Like, just somewhat similar. But, anyway, there are some, like, different traits both sides have. And so, after bishop f5, knight to d2, rerouting to the somewhat soft c4 square, knight to c6, e4, which is good, which is a move he's planning to cage the bishop, and it should look similar to the old Indian position. And so after bishop to g6, bishop to b5, rook c8, h4, threatening to trap the bishop. And so h5 was played, rook to e1, stabilizing e4, e6, a4, bishop to e7, g3, protecting the h-pawn, castles, a5. He's trying to undermine the queen side, perhaps, or gain light square control, or force some kind of weakness. So he's trying to provoke a6 and weaken b6, possibly. But anyway. Rook d8 was played, a6, b6, Carlsen played king c2, and lagrave played the centralizing knight to e5. And so if we take stock of this position, black's pieces are well placed towards the center, while white is somewhat uncoordinated. White has its own space on the edges of the board. It seems to be one of those, equalish, minus positions where white can improve his pieces, whereas black, it's difficult to come up with a plan or find a way to put the pieces. And it's a very unusual position, and I love both sides. I like both, the positions. I think I've played on both sides of this, in similar sort of positions. And it's just a joy to play, I think. And so, anyway, Carlsen played f4, gaining space on the king side. And lagrave played knight to g4. Carlsen played king to b3. Lagrave played f6. So if needed, he can go bishop to f7. If needed, he could play e5. There's a lot of flexibility in his choice of move. And so now Carlsen plays knight to c4 now, because that bishop on b5 isn't going anywhere. b5 isn't coming. It's a good outpost on c4. And it controls good key squares. And so, now, after knight to c4, lagrave played knight to f2, aiming to go to the softened d3 square, which, it's extraordinary if you can get it there, which did happen in the game. And after Carlsen played e5, lagrave played knight to e4, which is a great square. And now Carlsen played what is it? Whoops. Bishop to e3. And so let's see. Yeah, as you can see at this position, let's see. This is move 22. Oh yeah. So here lagrave played bishop to f5. Carlsen played rook to g1. Just protecting that square. Now, if he was, it's in this position there's lots of tactics. So if lagrave took, there's the fork of rook g1. But now after bishop f5, it's threatening the pawn for real. So now rook g1 defends it for real. And now lagrave is starting to build up on the d file. So with rook to d5, and Carlsen played rook a to e1. Now he could consider rook. If rook to d1, then there's exchanges and g3 drops, so that's impossible. And now lagrave plays king to f7, which was one of his ideas behind f6, which is good. And now Carlsen, the bishop is done well and it's connected rooks, so we return the bishop to c1. And lagrave played bishop to h7, just giving his pieces more mobility. So given the opportunity, he could even try to get his king to f5 maybe. It would be some kind of, a mortal game if that was possible maybe. But anyway, now rook to e3 was played by Carlsen, and lagrave finished connecting rooks with rook c to d8. And Carlsen played bishop to c6, thinking that lagrave might try to go to d3 or something, or exchange a pair of rooks and provoke that. But lagrave is vicious in this, and he decides to play knight to f2, allowing, so if bishop takes, he has a pawn roller with the initiative, and this knight is going to go to a terrible square. This is strong in this position, very mobile, reminiscent of Botvinnik and many other dynamic players like c4. In this, there is a great initiative in this position. And yeah. This knight is going to be at least worth a rook if it's entrenched, and these pieces are just really going to dominate the position. Back to the game. So rook e2 was played, and now lagrave plays knight to d3. Again, he's going to be always offering that because he's going to have more than enough compensation for the exchange. And this is one of those positions where white's rooks have no entry and are no worse than a bishop. And the bishops have this slinking ability on their light and dark squares, and so I think their positional ability could be at least equal to a rook, perhaps, in this kind of weird position. So knight to d3 was played. Carlsen exchanged on f6, and bishop to b5 was played by Carlsen, and lagrave plays rook to g8. And it is clear that the position has dynamic equality achieved. Small problems can be caused by Carlsen. One very oh yeah. So anyway, so now Carlsen starts with bishop to d2, and lagrave goes back to d8 with his g rook. Carlsen plays bishop to e3, and lagrave plays bishop to e4. And now he can start getting more space and solidifying more ground and entrenching the pieces. Perhaps f5 is an idea, just entrenching the bishop on e4. And yeah, so Carlsen plays rook to d2, and lagrave probes that g file with rook to g8. And the thing is, this is one of those positions where you have to calculate after every single move, and both of them don't want to make any committal decisions, which will burn the bridges. And so Carlsen played king to a4. Maybe he wants to play bishop c6 and king b5. And lagrave plays rook back to d8, repeating. And now Carlsen goes back to b3, and lagrave goes back to g8 with the rook. And Carlsen plays king a2, just a waiting move. And finally, there's a somewhat of a committal decision by lagrave. He plays f5, entrenching the bishop. And now, rook h2 is played by Carlsen, getting out of the way of just the d file. And lagrave prevented bishop to c6 with rook to c8. And now Carlsen goes back to d2. So I guess some of those moves with the bishop c6 also probably involved variations with sacrificing the exchange and creating pawn rollers with the d5 pawn. So yeah, lagrave went back to g8, and Carlsen played rook e2. And this time, lagrave played bishop to f3, attacking that e rook, and Carlsen played rook h2. And now lagrave, in playing f5, has secured that long diagonal and played bishop to f6. And now Carlsen played knight to d2. And okay, bishop g4 was played by lagrave, but he could consider keeping it on e4. But the thing is, like, it's a bit messy. Okay, yeah, you could just it's okay. Yeah, this is it's a bit, I guess, weakening this pawn. I mean, Carlsen can move this bishop and double up maybe on that if he, well, actually he can't double up, but I guess it's let's see what the engine thinks if this was considered. Okay. I guess it would be close to equal with this, and the knight is very strong on that point, and I think, yeah, it's about almost equal in that position with that consideration. So after bishop g4, Carlsen played rook f1, and lagrave played rook dg8. And now Carlsen puts his knight back on c4, and lagrave, seeing as there's two defenders on e5 and 3 attackers on e5, he plays e5, removing the backwards pawn on e6. And after f takes e5, bishop takes e5, Carlsen played bishop to g5, attacking the d8 rook. And now it's got some fireworks. So lagrave plays bishop takes g3. Carlsen plays rook g2, attacking the bishop. And now bishop h3 was played. So rook takes, so attacking that G rook again, and now rook takes G2 or G3 was forced, and that X-ray, which was played by lagrave, allowed bishop takes F1, and now lagrave has a pawn up in this position from that tactic. So Carlsen attacks the F1 bishop with rook F3. And lagrave plays bishop to E2. And now for the amazing parts of the game. This is where the incredible part of the game happened, and this sharp endgame. So Magnus, having put a brilliant display to reach a winning position, had a combination that had a flaw. And so, yeah, I guess, yeah, bishop takes d8 was a strong move. Yeah, Magnus always finds the tactical resources. Actually, yeah, there was no flaw in this. This is all good. That is the best move, I think. And now lagrave plays bishop takes on F3, and Carlsen plays bishop takes on B6, which is incredible. This was the whole point behind Carlsen's combination now, his counter combination in the deepness, creating a passed A pawn if taken. And now, yeah, this cannot be declined at all. Like, this would allow, like, if you decline this with trying to push your own pawn, then this is just clearing the way for the A pawn, and it's going to be faster than this F pawn. Because after bishop to E4, bishop just clears on B6, F3, A7, and you can, I guess, check. I mean, but I think this pawn is faster on the top. D8's covered, and yeah, black is just not winning that. So yeah, okay, and now lagrave found this remarkable move, bishop C6, after the exchange up there. So here, Carlsen's threatening A7, I think, or Carlsen plays the incredible bishop C6, covering A8 square, X ring. Now this time lagrave's bishop, and lagrave has to play a strong defensive move. He can't just give up that bishop, because then that pawn queens, and now then Carlsen would be a piece up with this example. Like this cannot be played. This is just not, like, things are going to be dropping, and yeah, this is an absolute, like, this is like just me looking at the thing, and it's just not good. Like, this is coming, you can't stop the pawn, and the rook can be kicked out of play. So this is not an option to be looked at. So lagrave, in remembering his calculations, like, he plays this bishop to E4, just protecting the bishop, and it's a very powerful move. Yeah, the immediate rook D8, which you've seen is impossible because the rook is hanging, or the bishop is hanging, and yeah, this is an incredible move. And so now Carlsen plays A7, which is forced because a knight takes on B6, threatening to exchange, and then queen would be met by rook D8, and after bishop takes E4, F takes on E4, A7, black has his pawn, and it's like nothing can take it. So you can queen if you want, but it's defended, and yeah, black's queening. So back to the game. A7 was played. Lagrave played rook d8, intending to prevent the queening. And Carlsen plays this incredible intermediate move, knight to d6. This is a great move. The best move, of course. Now, taking the knight allows the queening to happen, I think. So, yeah, in this variation, there could be knight takes on e4, f takes on e4, and bishop takes e4. And, white is going to have a good, game. This is, equal-ish. A game cannot be won unless one side has at least +3 in the evaluation. So, anyway, back to the game. Lagrave plays rook takes d6, the best move, seemingly queening the pawn. But the thing is, in this position, that you can queen the pawn, but let's see. I think you just get too much material for the queen. And these are all strong and active pieces. This king is not getting mated. The only person who has mating chances is black. And so you don't have really time, I guess, in queening and being material up. So anyway, back to the game. Lagrave defends the queening square. And Carlsen queens. And after the exchange of the queen and everything, I guess it's now a sort of true endgame, but less tactics than before. Before, it was a sharp endgame with lots of tactics and lots of ways to go wrong, and I think Carlsen exploited the most out of his position. But now, it's I guess somewhat unfortunate, because there's less ways to fight, I guess, with the loss of material. And so now Lagrave plays knight to e5. Carlsen plays king to b3. Good. He's always good and finds the key moments to bring his king to the center. f4 is played by Lagrave. King c2 was played by Carlsen, and Lagrave played king to g7, getting off that light square diagonal. For centralizing and skewering, and I don't know. And now Carlsen plays king d2. Lagrave plays knight to g6. And Carlsen plays king to d3. And now Lagrave takes the pawn on h4. Carlsen tries to get that pawn on f4, but I guess Lagrave just protects it. And there's a bit of a knot on the king's side. In hindsight, this could be stronger. I mean, you can allow maybe bishop c6, with the knight moving, and bishop e8 checks, but I guess it's just more aggressive, I guess. Carlsen king d2, knight g6. Okay. So now Carlsen can win back that pawn if he chooses, but the thing is, Lagrave played king f6, and now Carlsen plays b4, and Lagrave plays c4, keeping the pawns on, because any exchanges make it closer to a draw. And now bishop d5 was played, and Lagrave played king f5. Very strong. And now if Carlsen was to play king f2, blockading the pawn, there follows king f4, bishop c6, because it has to stay in contact with this f3 pawn, otherwise the knight is free. And Lagrave has knight f5 here, bishop takes on f3 and h4. And the outside pass pawn is strong. You can try bishop g2, and knight to e3 happens, bishop f3, h3. You can try b5, but then knight g4 controlling h2, king e2, knight f6 rerouting, and knight e4 is coming, blockading, and just making more progress. Back to the game. King g4 was played, and Carlsen played king f2, and now Lagrave played knight to g6. So knight is reactivated. This is hard to defend this position. And now bishop e6 was played by Carlsen, and Lagrave played king f4. Carlsen played bishop f7, x-raying that h-pawn. Then Lagrave finished the rerouting of that knight to try to gain control of those dark squares. So knight e5, bishop takes on h5. And now knight d3 check was played. Carlsen played king f1, and Lagrave played king to g3. Carlsen played bishop to f7, and now this is the last move of the game. Lagrave played knight to f2, and there are two paths Lagrave can use to get the knight to e3, and the bishop can't really stop that from happening, and he's going to get f1 under control. This position is just not good to face. And so yeah, here Carlsen resigned. I hope you enjoyed the game, and thanks for watching, and thanks for bearing with me in that analysis.